evening to lecturer. My name is Sedu Anlaki from DKM4A, and today I am going to present about elements in pneumatics working system. So firstly, actuators. The work done by pneumatic actuators can be linearly or rotary. Linear movement is obtained by piston cylinders. The recropping rotary motion with an angle up to 270 degrees by vane or rack and pinion type actuators. So pneumatic cylinder contains of piston rod, piston, cylinder tube and cylinder caps. Then type of cylinder, one is single acting cylinder. A single acting cylinder develops thrust in one direction only. The piston rod is returned by fitted spring or by external force from load or spring. Second is double acting cylinder. With this actuator, thrust is developed in both extending and retracting directions as air pressure is applied alternately to opposite sides of piston. The thrust available on the retracting stroke is reduced due to the smaller effective piston area and the size of cylinder. Theoretical force of cylinder. Linear cylinders have the following standard diameters, and the force developed by a cylinder is a function of the piston diameter, the operating pressure and the frictional resistance. For the theoretical force, the thrust on a stationary piston, the friction is neglected. And cushioning. Pneumatic cylinders are capable of very high speed, and considerable shock forces can be developed on the end of stroke. Smaller cylinders often have fixed cushioning, for example rubber buffers, to absorb the shock and prevent internal damage to the cylinder. On larger cylinders, the impact effect can be absorbed by an air cushion that deaccelerates the piston over the last portion of the stroke. The cushion traps some of the exhausting air near end of the stroke before allowing it to bleed off more slowly through an adjustable needle valve. Mounting of cylinder. There are many kinds. For example, direct, foot, threaded neck, rear flank, front flank, rear clevy and trunnion. And for the special cylinder, there are four kinds, which is twin rod, lead rod, multi-position rod and lock rod. So what is lock rod is a cylinder can be fitted with locking head in place of the standard and cover. It will hold the piston rod in any position. There are three kinds of rotary actuators, which is rack and pinion, ram, air motor. So the rack and pinion shaft is the output shaft has an integral pinion gear driven by the rack attached to a double piston. The standard angles of the rotation are between 90 degrees or 180 degrees. So ram is air pressure acts on vane which is attached to the output shaft. The vane is sealed against leakage by a fitted rubber seal. Besides that, a special three-dimensional sieve seals the stopper against the shaft and the housing. The size of the stopper defines the rotation angle of 90 degrees, 180 degrees and 270 degrees. And the adjustable stops may be provided to adjust any angle of the rotation unit. So air motor. The pneumatic motor or compressed air engine is a type of motor which does mechanical work by expanding compressed air. Pneumatic motors generally convert the compressed air energy to mechanical work through either linear or rotary motion. So special actuator, there are four kinds. Firstly, rod without cylinder, slide unit, hollow rod cylinder and air chuck, which was also known as grasping. So rodless cylinders consist of magnetic rings with opposite polarity, iron disc, carriage, piston, and stainless steel cylinder tube. That's all from me. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Manoj Kumar. Greetings to our lecturer. I'm going to continue the explanation given by Setu. Slide unit. The slide unit is a precision linear actuator of compact dimensions which can be used on robotic manufacturing and assembly machines. It consists of pistons. Next is the Hollywood rod cylinder. The hollow rod cylinder provides a direct connection between a vacuum source and a vacuum pad attached to the working end of the rod. The connecting tube at the rear of the cylinder remains static while the rod extends and retracts. A few of the components available are locking nut for vacuum pad, vacuum connection, anti-rotation rod, and the switch. Next is the air chuck. An air chuck is an actuator designed to grip components in robotic type applications. The type shown has the types has two opposing pistons to open and close the jaws. Next up is the directional control valve. A directional control valve determines the flow of air between its ports by opening, closing, or changing its internal connections. A few of the directional control valves available are the 3-2 directional control valve, the 5-2 directional control valve. Next up is the sensor. A sensor is a device that when exposed to a physical phenomenon such as temperature, displacement, force, it produces a proportional output signal, which is either electrical, mechanical, magnetic. The term transducer is often used synonymously with sensors. However, ideally, a sensor is a device that responds to a change in the physical phenomenon. On the other hand, a transducer is a device that converts one form of energy into another form of energy. Sensors are transducers when they sense one form of energy input and output in a different form of energy. A few of the sensors available are the displacement, position, and proximity sensors. Displacement sensors are concerned with the measurement of amount by which object has moved. Position sensors are concerned with the determination of the position of some object with references to some reference point. Proximity sensors are a form of position sensors. They are used to determine when an object has moved to within some particular critical distance from the sensor. Proximity sensors usually provides an on or off signal indicating the presence or absence of an object. Inductance, capacitance, photoelectric, and Hall effect types are widely used as proximity sensors. Inductive proximity sensors consist of a coil wound with a core. When the end of the coil is close to a metal object, its inductance change. This change can be monitored by its effect on a resonance circuit to trigger a switch. Capacitive proximity switches responds to all types of materials. The reduction coefficient is determined experimentally in the range of 0.1 to 1. Note that liquids can also be detected by capacitive sensors. They are very sensitive to environmental factors such as dust, dirt, and humidity. Next is the pneumatic limit switches. Pneumatic limit switches are non-passing and NP or passing NP when actuated by a moving part. The various operating levers, bore dimensions and functions. A pneumatic pressure and wire vacuum switches. These are devices that monitor the pressure of a fluid, which is air, water, oil, or vacuum. Pressure from negative 30 degrees to 130 psi can be detected in several ranges depending on the model. Next is known as the bleed sensor. Bleed sensors are used for the sensing of low forces and short travel. Next up is the fluidic proximity sensor. A fluidic proximity sensor is used when the application requires non-contact sensing of a moving part. That's all from me. Thank you.